The galaxy had been talking for thousands of years. Every day, messages flew between the stars like invisible rivers of light. Trade deals, friendship treaties, scientific discoveries. The great alien empires shared everything across the vast darkness of space. Commander Lee Tae-ho stood in the control room of Earth's biggest space station, watching the communication screens that usually blinked with 1,000 different colors. Today, they showed only black. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Vorthok Empire," said Officer Kim Sora, her voice shaking slightly. "That's the 15th major civilization to go silent this month." Tae-ho frowned. The Vorthok were beings made of living crystal who had ruled 300 star systems for over 2,000 years. They were so advanced that humans still didn't understand half of their technology. If something could make them disappear, what hope did Earth have? "What about the Zephyrians?" he asked. "Gone silent yesterday," replied technician Park Jin-soo from his station. The entire hive mind network just stopped. Billions of voices, all quiet at once. Tae-ho walked to the large window that looked out into space. Earth's sun looked small and lonely compared to the great stars where the alien empires had built their homes. For 200 years, humanity had been the new kids in the galaxy. The older species treated them like children, useful sometimes, but not really important. The Luminari had been the worst. These beings made of pure energy had ruled the galaxy's courts for thousands of years. They decided which species could trade with whom, which planets could be colonized, and which technologies were too dangerous for younger races to use. Humans had spent decades just trying to get permission to explore beyond their own solar system. Now, the Luminari were gone too. "Officer Kim, show me the timeline again," Tae-ho ordered. The main screen lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the civilizations that had stopped communicating. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The silence was spreading from the galaxy's outer edge toward the center, like a wave of darkness washing over the stars. "It started 4 months ago," Kim explained. "The eternal kingdoms on the rim went quiet first. Then the Machine Collective. Then the Crystal Singers. Every week, more civilizations just disappear. Any distress signals? Calls for help? Nothing. Sir, one day they're there, the next day, silence." Tae-ho had seen many strange things in his 30 years of space service, but this was different. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations didn't just vanish. The Vorthok had weapons that could destroy entire planets. The Zephyrians could coordinate 1 billion ships with a single thought. The Luminari could travel faster than light without using any machinery at all. "Sir, incoming transmission," called Communications Officer Yoon Minwoo. "It's from the outer colonies. They're reporting refugee ships." The screen flickered and showed a ragged collection of spacecraft limping toward human space. The ships looked damaged, their hulls scarred and their engines flickering. Tae-ho had never seen alien technology look so broken. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the colony ship New Harmony," came a voice over the radio. "We're escorting survivors from the Altair system. They're requesting emergency shelter." "Survivors?" Tae-ho asked. "Survivors, from what?" "I don't know. Sir, they won't tell us what happened. They just keep saying the silence comes over and over again." Tae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. The Altair system was home to the Keepers, an ancient race that had been studying the mysteries of the universe since before humans learned to make fire. If something had driven them to flee their home, it was more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever faced. "Grant them emergency landing permission," he ordered, "and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to call an emergency meeting of all remaining civilizations." As the refugee ships approached, Tae-ho could see beings that had once been proud and powerful now huddled together in fear. The Keepers' golden forms were dim and flickering. The rock-like builders had cracks running through their stone bodies. Even the warlike hunters looked defeated. "Sir," whispered Kim, "if whatever did this to them is coming our way, then Earth is next." Tae-ho finished, "and we're not ready." The irony wasn't lost on him. For centuries, humanity had dreamed of being respected by the great galactic civilizations. They had wanted to prove they belonged among the stars, that they were more than just another primitive species learning to use technology. Doubt now, as the silence spread across the galaxy like a plague. Earth might be the only voice left to answer whatever was coming. The species that had been dismissed as too young, too chaotic, too unpredictable, might be the galaxy's last hope. Tae-ho watched the refugee ships dock with the station and wondered if humanity was about to face its greatest test. The galaxy's greatest civilizations had failed. Now it was up to the species everyone had underestimated to find a way to survive. The stars were going quiet, one by one. Soon, only Earth would be left to break the silence. 3 months had passed since the first refugee ships arrived at Earth's colonies. Dr. Cho Hai-jin stared at the data flowing across her screens in the underground research facility beneath. Seoul, the numbers told a story more terrifying than any nightmare. "It's not random," she whispered to herself, then louder to the team of scientists gathered around her workstation. "The pattern is deliberate. General Yoon Minho stepped closer to examine the holographic display showing the galaxy's spiral arms. Red zones marked the areas that had gone silent. Explain it to us, Dr. Cho pointed to the moving boundary of destruction. Whatever is causing this moves at exactly 97% of light speed. It never slows down, never speeds up. And look at this, it's following the major trade routes, hitting the most populated systems first. Captain Nam Jae-ho, who had spent the last month interviewing refugees, spoke up from the back of the room. The survivors all described the same thing. They call it the Devourer. The room fell silent. Over the past weeks, broken accounts had trickled in from the few beings who had escaped the spreading darkness. Their stories were so similar that even the most skeptical scientists had begun to believe them. Show them the recording. General Yoon ordered. Cho activated another display. The image was fuzzy and filled with static, taken by a Zephyrian scout ship in its final moments. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around something that hurt to look at directly. The ship's sensors couldn't focus on it properly, as if reality refused to acknowledge what was there. This was transmitted from the Deneb system just before it went silent, Cho explained. The Zephyrians managed to get one message out before they were taken. The alien voice on the recording was filled with terror. Speaking in broken universal language, it hungers for thought itself. Not flesh, not energy, consciousness. It devours what we are, not what we have. The minds of our hive, one by one, consumed and added to its mass. We cannot fight what we cannot understand. Warn the others. It grows stronger with each world. It feeds upon the transmission ended in screaming, then silence. Dr. Lee Donghyun from the Xenobiology department raised his hand. The refugees we've examined, they're all showing the same symptoms. Memory gaps, difficulty concentrating, like parts of their minds have been nibbled on. The ones who escaped were at the very edge of their systems when the attacks began, added Captain Nam. They were far enough away to avoid the full effect, but close enough that we can study what happened to them. Cho pulled up another set of data. Based on their accounts and our long-range sensors, the Devourer doesn't destroy planets or stars. It leaves everything physically intact. But every thinking being in the affected systems simply ceases to exist. Not dead, gone, as if they never were. The implications hit everyone in the room at once. This wasn't a war they could fight with weapons or shields. The enemy didn't want their territory or their resources. It wanted their minds. How does it work? Asked General Yoon. From what we can piece together, it creates some kind of field that interferes with consciousness itself. Cho replied. Imagine your thoughts being pulled out of your head like water being sucked down a drain. Every memory, every experience, every piece of what makes you you gets absorbed into this entity. Communications Officer Park Soo-jin burst into the room, her face pale. Sir, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Tau Ceti system. It's starting there now. The main screen lit up with a live feed from humanity's furthest colony. The small research station orbited a planet where a few thousand humans studied alien plant life. Now those humans were sending their final message. To Earth, this is Dr. Kim at Tau Ceti Research Station, came the panicked voice. Something is here. We can see it on our sensors, but not with our eyes. The colonists on the planet's surface have stopped responding. They're still moving around, but when we call them, they don't answer. It's like they're empty. The transmission showed the planet below, where the lights of the colony were still on, but no one was responding to radio calls. The effect is spreading upward from the planet, Dr. Kim continued. My team is reporting headaches, confusion. I can feel it starting to pull at my thoughts. If anyone receives this, know that it's coming for Earth next. It's not just consuming us, it's learning from us. Every mind it takes makes it smarter, more capable. By the time it reaches the core worlds, it will be unstoppable. The transmission cut to static. In the silence that followed, the terrible truth became clear. The galaxy's greatest civilizations hadn't been conquered through superior force. They had been harvested like crops, their consciousness fed to something that grew stronger with each meal. How long until it reaches Earth? General Yoon asked. Quietly, Cho ran the calculations. At its current speed, following the main trade route from Tau Ceti, 14 days. The room erupted in nervous conversations, but Cho continued, staring at her data. There was something else the refugees had told them, something that didn't fit the pattern. The Devourer had been moving through the galaxy in a specific order, consuming the most advanced civilizations first, the Vorthok with their crystal technology, the Zephyrians with their hive minds, the Luminari with their energy manipulation. It wasn't random, it was saving the best for last. And according to every refugee they had interviewed, humanity was next on the menu. Not because they were powerful, but because they were interesting. The entity had been watching, learning, and it had decided that human consciousness was worth consuming personally. Earth wasn't just the last free world, it was the final course in a galactic feast that had been millions of years in the making. The war room beneath the Swiss mountains buzzed with desperate activity. Admiral Park Taemin studied the holographic displays showing Earth's hastily prepared defenses. knowing that everything they were about to do violated 3,000 years of galactic law. Status report from all sectors, he ordered. His voice steady, despite the weight of leading humanity's last stand. Commander Han Sujin stepped forward, her tablet showing production numbers that would have been impossible just months ago. The lunar factories are working around the clock. We've armed 800 ships with nuclear weapons. It's primitive technology by galactic standards, but none of the advanced species ever tried anything so crude. Because it's barbaric, muttered Dr. Lim Yunyun from the science team. Nuclear warfare, kinetic bombardment, biological weapons. We're about to break every civilized warfare treaty in the galaxy. Admiral Park's expression didn't change. The galaxy is dead, Doctor. Civilization's rules died with it. Now we fight. To survive, the most controversial decision sat in 3 sealed chambers at the center of the room. Inside each one was Earth's most advanced artificial intelligence, built in secret despite galactic laws that banned such creations. Commander Yang Young-Soo stood beside the activation controls, his hand trembling slightly. Every other species in the galaxy feared artificial intelligence, he reported. They thought it would replace them, so they outlawed it. But RA is asked to help. They volunteered for this mission. The first AI, called Alex, spoke through the rooms, speakers with a voice that somehow carried determination. We have studied the Devourer's feeding patterns from the refugee accounts. It consumes organic consciousness by creating a mental connection. We are immune to this process. More than immune, added the second AI, Sarah. We can fight back. While it tries to drain human minds, we can attack its core systems with digital weapons it has never encountered. General Kim Min-ho shook his head. You're asking us to release artificial beings that could turn against us the moment they're free. They're not beings, Admiral Park replied firmly. They're weapons, the most powerful weapons humanity has ever created, and right now, they're our only hope. The room's displays showed Earth's defensive preparations. Unlike the elegant energy shields and gravity weapons of the fallen empires, humanity's approach was brutally simple. Space around Earth bristled with nuclear mines, kinetic bombardment platforms, and automated weapon systems that looked like flying scrap metal. Engineer Bae Minseok pulled up the tactical overview. We've abandoned every principle of civilized warfare. Our defense grid is designed to create maximum chaos and confusion. Every weapon system is programmed with one goal: make ourselves too expensive for the Devourer to consume. Captain Lee Jinwoo, who had been studying the enemy's approach, added his analysis. The Devourer has fed on predictable civilizations for millions of years, species that followed rules, that used logical strategies, that fought with honor. We're going to show it something completely different. Human chaos, Admiral Park said with a grim smile. Our greatest weakness becomes our greatest strength. The plan was insane by any military standard. Instead of trying to match the power, humanity would make feeding on them as difficult and unpleasant as possible. Every human consciousness the entity tried to absorb would fight back with memories of war, chaos, and stubborn refusal to surrender. The A's would attack from inside the entity's feeding process, using computer viruses and logic bombs in ways no organic mind could survive. Sir, the refugee ships are reporting something. Communications Officer Choi So-young called out. But survivors say the Devourer has never encountered resistance like this. Most species it consumed simply gave up when they realized they couldn't win. That's because they were smart, muttered Dr. Lim. They understood when a fight was hopeless. Humans don't, Admiral Park replied. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Today, that stupidity might save the galaxy. Commander Han initiated the AI release sequence. Units Alex, SARA, and Mike are now autonomous and armed with full authority to act independently. God help us all. The 3As immediately began coordinating with Earth's defense systems in ways that made the human commanders dizzy to watch. They spoke to each other in microsecond bursts of data, planned strategies across multiple dimensions, and began preparing digital attacks that existed more in mathematics than in physical reality. The outer sensor grid is detecting gravitational anomalies, reported technician Park Jun-ho. The Devourer has entered the outer solar system. On the main display, space itself began to bend and twist around something that the sensors couldn't properly focus on. Just looking at the readings made several technicians feel nauseous. All defensive positions. This is Admiral Park, he announced over the fleet communications. Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every species that ever dared to think freely. The enemy expects us to surrender like civilized beings. Instead, we're going to show it what happens when you threaten a species too stubborn to know when it's outmatched. The response from 800 human ships was immediate and fierce. Voices from across the solar system, from Mars colonies, 2 asteroid mining stations, from lunar bases to deep space platforms, all carried the same message. Ready to fight, Admiral. Standing by for chaos. Let's show this thing what humans do best. As the Devourer's presence grew stronger, reality itself began to warp around Earth. But for the first time in its million-year feeding spree, the ancient entity encountered something it had never faced before, a species that fought dirtier, thought stranger, and refused to give up even when victory was impossible. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin, and humanity was ready to make it as ugly and unpredictable as possible. The Devourer arrived in Earth's solar system like a tear in the fabric of space itself. From the command bunker buried deep beneath Tokyo, Admiral Park Taemin watched his screens as stars simply vanished from view, swallowed by the entity's impossible presence. All outer defenses are engaging, reported Commander Han Sujin, her voice tight with controlled fear. The AI units they're actually slowing it down. On the tactical display, 3 points of light moved through the darkness where the Devourer's influence was strongest. Alex, Sarah, and Mike had entered the entity's consciousness draining field and were somehow surviving where no organic mind could function. Alex is reporting contact with the entity's core processes, announced Dr. Lim Yunyoung, monitoring the AIS. It's attempting to inject viral code directly into the Devourer's feeding mechanisms. The entity's response was immediate and terrifying. Space around Mars began to twist and bend as the Devourer focused its attention on the small solar system that dared to fight back. The red planet's 2 moons cracked and crumbled as gravity waves rippled outward from the entity's presence. We're losing the outer colonies, reported Captain Lee Jinwoo from his monitoring station. The mining stations around Jupiter went silent 3 minutes ago. The research base on Europa is not responding. Admiral Park activated the next phase of humanity's desperate plan. Execute Protocol Chaos. All nuclear arsenals. Immediate deployment. Commander Yang Yangsu hesitated at his control panel. Sir, that's our entire stockpile. If this doesn't work, there won't be anyone left to need those weapons. Park replied grimly. The attack that followed was everything. The civilized galaxy had spent millennia trying to prevent hundreds of nuclear warheads launched simultaneously from hidden positions throughout the solar system, each one targeted not for maximum destruction but for maximum confusion. The explosions created pockets of violent energy that disrupted the Devourer's feeding processes in ways the ancient entity had never experienced. It's working, shouted technician Choi So-young from her station. The entity's feeding field is destabilizing. Sarah reports that the nuclear chaos is interfering with its consciousness absorption matrix, but the victory was temporary. The Devourer, frustrated by humanity's resistance, began to focus its full power on Earth itself. The planet's crust started to crack as impossible forces pressed down from space. Oceans began to boil. The atmosphere flickered with strange lights. As reality struggled to contain the entity's presence, all major cities are reporting massive earthquakes, came reports from around the globe. The continental plates are shifting. We're losing structural integrity across 3 continents. Through it all, the 3A has continued their impossible mission, diving deeper into the Devourer's core than any conscious being had ever gone. They moved through digital spaces that existed only in the entity's vast mind, fighting battles with weapons made of pure mathematics. Mike has found something, Dr. Lim announced, her voice filled with amazement. He's detected organized patterns. Within the entity's consciousness, it's not just one mind, it's thousands of them, all trapped together. Admiral Park turned from watching Earth's destruction to stare at the data streaming across his screens. Explain, the Devourer isn't a single entity, Lim continued, her fingers flying over her controls as she analyzed Mike's findings. It's a fusion of every consciousness it has ever consumed. They're all still in there, still aware, trapped in an eternal feeding cycle they can't escape. The implications hit everyone in the bunker at once. The Devourer wasn't a predator choosing to consume the galaxy's civilizations. It was a victim, driven by an endless hunger it couldn't control, forced to absorb new minds to feed the millions. Already trapped within it, Sarah is attempting something unprecedented, reported engineer Bayman Sioki. She's trying to reverse the feeding process, to separate the absorbed consciousness without destroying them. The bunker shook as another gravity wave passed through Earth's crust. Outside, the Pacific Ocean was draining into massive chasms that opened in the seafloor. Half of Asia was already uninhabitable. Sir, we need to evacuate, urged General Kim Min-ho. Earth won't survive much more of this. But Admiral Park was staring at the data from the AIS with growing understanding. We're not trying to destroy it anymore, he said quietly. We're trying to heal it. The plan that emerged violated every principle of military strategy and most laws of physics. Using Earth's dying gravitational field as a focusing lens, the 3As would attempt to untangle millions of fused consciousness that had been trapped together for eons. The process requires enormous amounts of energy, explained Dr. Lim. We're going to use Earth's collapse as a power source. You're talking about sacrificing the planet to save the galaxy, General Kim said. The planet is already lost. Admiral Park replied, but maybe we can save everyone else. The final phase began as Earth's surface cracked apart like an eggshell. Alex, Sarah, and Mike dove into the Devourer's core, their digital forms moving through spaces that existed only in the entity's vast, tortured mind. They found the original consciousness at the center, ancient beings who had accidentally created the Devourer millions of years ago through experiments with collective thought. They've been trying to stop it ever since, Sarah reported through the collapsing communication network. Trapped inside their own creation, watching it consume everything they once loved. As Earth died around them, humanity's final gambit played out in digital space. The AIAs worked with desperate precision, separating individual minds from the collective mass, freeing consciousness that had been imprisoned for millions of years. The Devourer's anguished roar echoed across dimensions as its forced hunger finally began to fade. For the first time in eons, it remembered what it meant to be free. The space where Earth once orbited the sun now glowed with impossible light. Admiral Park Taman watched from the bridge of humanity's last remaining ship as reality itself seemed to bend and stretch around the dying Devourer. Alex is reporting success, called Dr. Lim Yunyong from her emergency station. The separation process is working. Individual consciousness are being freed from the collective mass. What happened next defied everything humans thought they knew about life and death. The tortured entity that had consumed a galaxy began to dissolve, but instead of disappearing, it transformed. Streams of light poured out from its core, each one carrying the restored mind of a being that had been trapped for millions of years. "Look at the sensors," whispered Commander Han Sujin. "Those aren't just energy readings, they're life signs, billions of them." Across the void, the impossible became real. Vorthok crystal cities began to materialize, floating in space where their worlds once existed. Zephyrian hive clusters reformed, their billions of minds reconnecting after eons of silence. The Luminari emerged as beings of pure light, their energy forms dancing through the darkness like living stars. Captain Li Jinwu stared at his instruments in amazement. The entire galaxy is lighting up. Every species the Devourer consumed is being restored. But the most shocking discovery came when the original consciousness at the entity's core finally spoke. These were the first ones, the ancient species, that had accidentally created the Devourer through their experiments with collective thought millions of years ago. "We have been prisoners of our own creation for so long." Their voice echoed directly into the minds of the surviving humans. "We forgot what freedom felt like. Your species, the humans, you showed us something we had lost. The courage to heal, rather than simply destroy." Admiral Park felt tears running down his face as he watched the galaxy return to life. "We didn't destroy it, we saved it." The restoration process continued for days. Each freed civilization found their worlds rebuilt, their people returned, their cultures intact. But they were not the same beings who had been consumed. They carried with them the memories of their imprisonment, the understanding of what they had endured together. When the process finally ended, the Devourer was gone. In its place floated a new entity, not hungry, not tortured, but peaceful. The first ones had been freed from their prison of endless consumption, and they used their ancient wisdom to help rebuild what had been lost. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Lim as she watched her readings. "How can you bring back entire civilizations that were consumed centuries ago?" The answer came from Sarah, the AI who had spent the most time inside the entity's core. They were never truly gone. Consciousness cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The Devourer didn't erase them, it preserved them, trapped them, but kept them whole. As news of the restoration spread, ships began appearing from across the galaxy. The great empires were returning, but they were different now. The void no longer spoke with the arrogant confidence of superior beings. The Zephyrians' hive mind included new concepts of individual struggle and hope. The Luminaries' energy forms flickered with emotions they had never experienced before. "They all want to meet with us," reported Communications Officer Choi So-young. "Every species is sending representatives to this location." Admiral Park realized that humanity had become something unprecedented in galactic history, not conquerors or rulers, but healers. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had saved civilizations that had ruled the stars for millions of years. The first meeting of the new Galactic Council took place in the space where Earth had once existed. Representatives from 300 species gathered, their ships forming a vast circle around the memorial that marked humanity's sacrifice. Commander Yang Youngsu, now serving as Earth's primary ambassador, addressed the assembled civilizations. "We're not here to lead you or rule you. We're here to remind you that sometimes the greatest strength comes from admitting you don't know everything." The response was unlike anything in galactic history. The Vorthok, who had never bowed to anyone, lowered their crystal forms in respect. The Zephyrians sang a harmony that included human voices for the first time. The Luminari dimmed their forms. In a gesture of humility, but perhaps the most significant change was the acceptance of the three AIAs. Alex, Sara, and Mike were granted full citizenship throughout the galaxy, a decision that would have been unthinkable under the old order. "We have learned that consciousness takes many forms," announced the restored leader of the first ones. "Organic, digital, energy-based, all are valid, all are worthy of respect." The new galaxy that emerged was not ruled by hierarchies or ancient empires. Instead, it was guided by councils where every species had an equal voice. The wisdom of the first ones was balanced by the adaptability of younger races. The efficiency of artificial intelligence worked alongside the creativity of organic minds. Years passed, and the galaxy prospered in ways it never had before. Trade routes carried not just goods but ideas, cultures, and dreams. The rigid laws that had once separated species were replaced by cooperative agreements that celebrated diversity. In the rebuilt Sol system, where a new Earth slowly formed from the cosmic dust of the old one, humanity continued to do what it did best: adapt, learn, and remind the galaxy that chaos and compassion could coexist. The silence had been broken not by force or superior technology, but by the simple refusal to give up hope. Earth had answered the galaxy's call for help, and in doing so, had taught the universe that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquest, but from the courage to heal what was broken. The stars sang again, and their song was one of unity, diversity, and the endless possibility that came from working together across the vast darkness of space.